Gary's coming. Yay. So good to have Gary and Debbie both in the club seats today. Hi, everybody. We are live Tuesday training, Practitioner Tuesday training, where we meet every week. Today, we're going over East meets West anatomy because that's an exciting topic. We started our conversation last week on that. Hey, Gary, welcome. We started our conversation on that last week as we were diving into the Inspired Beyond Anatomy course, full course. And then we got to our Eastern conversation, which is really exciting. And what I want to share with you today is how to blend them, like when to use one, when to use the other, why to use both, when to blend them, when not to blend them. I sent you guys for those of you on the email list, I sent you a kind of provocative email this morning about that and got a little bit of feedback. People were like, hey, don't worry, I'm on your team. We're going to work it out. But I do want you to be thoughtful about it when you are working through musculoskeletal pain and rehabilitation and eradicating that because I think there's an order and a form for it. Hi, everybody who's here live on YouTube. Welcome. I can see you guys are here. Of course, I don't know who you are because YouTube doesn't tell me that, but you could tell me who you are if you want me to know that you're here. I'd love to interact with you. Please use the chat to do that and ask your questions and certainly contribute to the conversation. Let us know if you do Eastern medicine practices, if you're strictly Western, if you're trying to blend the two. Let me know where you're at with that so I can speak with you instead of at you. And also, Gary and Debbie, you guys let me know too, of course, because you're here live with me in the club seats. Wanted to just also say here at the top of our time together that for those of you, probably could have said this earlier, but I got the memo 5 minutes ago to myself, memo to me. Those of you who are here watching live with us on YouTube, we are still meeting live every single week. And the first 5 minutes at the top of the hour, we're holding, club seat backstage VIP, if you will. So just hang out on Tuesdays and we'll go live about 5 minutes past the hour. And so maybe some of you already logged off today because you thought we weren't meeting. We're still meeting. We're just doing club seats for 5 minutes first. So Gary, you're doing very much Eastern and Western. I knew this about you. I love this about you. And also, I get the sense, my friend, that you've added more Western in since you and I have been hanging out together on Tuesdays. Yes? Okay, I love that. Out of the top of out of the gate here, are you willing to tell us what you've learned about adding Western even before we dive into today's topic? Because you have, like I said, been with us for Tuesday training and integrating as we go. You want to share like what your journey is so far about that?
Sure. Just in terms of the Eastern piece, I'm very steeped in applied kinesiology, muscle testing, meridian work,
Mhm.
and but last year I picked up and studied myofascial release from John Barnes in terms of more of a Western fascial approach to that.
Mhm.
And so much of what you've said is you can't just do, and I found you just can't do an hour of myofascial release on somebody and expect to get a whole bunch of positive things done. So
Right.
it's a piece, like you said, it's a piece. When do you use it? It's going to be very interesting today to hear what your input is on that.
Yeah.
The body, as you said, the body's very complex, and if you don't really figure out where it is that the problem is, you can't apply your good tools. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my recent stuff is um, myofascial. That would be the most recent Western piece
Both
to it.
Shoots and Western.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. Yep.
yeah.
And are you recognizing, Gary, that as you add Western anatomy, it's supporting the work that you do as a previously predominant Eastern practitioner?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
that's what we're going at.
really, yeah, it's really critical to work both sides of the fence here.
Yeah,
We're, yeah, it's, as you've said a number of times, there is no one method that's going to get us there.
yeah. Well, there's no one technique
And
that's
so,
going to get us there.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. if
Yeah,
I dare to say
absolutely.
there is one method, but not one technique.
Mhm. Yes.
I mean, I'm
Okay.
just saying.
Clear. Yeah.
Clear. Okay, good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Gary. What about you,
Yeah.
Debbie? What's your I don't think I know your path with Eastern work. Are you doing any Eastern anatomy in your practice?
No, not really.
Okay. All
No,
right. Great. So this
primarily just Western.
yeah, perfect. So this is a good addition and an opening for you as you're making your way through Inspired Beyond Anatomy. Hey guys, I see the hearts coming in on for those of you who are here live on YouTube. Thanks for sending the hearts. I like it. I know that's only giving you one emoji choice, but I prefer that one. So thank you for sending that. All right, darlings. So let's dive in, if you will. If you're joining us for the first time, I know we've had some new subscribers in the last week. Welcome, warm welcome to you. I'm so glad that you're here and that we found our way to each other. I'm your host for the hour each week. I'm Gina Schatz. I'm both a manual and movement practitioner, full time for over 30 years. We don't need to do the math on that, but it's been a while. And as we speak today on our topic, I've also been steeped in both Eastern and Western practices. So I am not picking a side. I'm letting you know from a cohesive, um, balanced perspective what I believe is needed to get to the result that I get to, that I think most of you are here to get to as well, and that is to alleviate musculoskeletal pain and dysfunction. That's what I'm up to in the world. And so I've always been up to that in the world, and I spent I don't know, probably the greater part of a decade doing solely Eastern practices. It started first with my own, inquiry and exploration. What was happening was this is how it actually started for the very first time. I was doing manual work in private practice from an orthopedic background. I had just left the doctor's clinics where I was head practitioner and doing all my manual work, opened up my own private practice full time at that point. And by the end of the week, I was getting what I thought was quasi sick. Couldn't quite figure it out. And a good friend of mine, actually, who was a Reiki practitioner, said, "Oh, I think you're picking up energy from everyone." To which, of course, I thought I grew a third eye, and I was like, "What is she talking about? Like, I'm doing orthopedic. Like, what? What the freak? What?" And she said, "No, no, Gina, I really think that you're sensitive enough and you're picking up other people's energy." I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I kind of did, but it sounded a little woo, sounded a little like not based in anything real. And I'm saying that on purpose because for us practitioners, when you're speaking to someone who is not a practitioner, if they haven't already experienced some type of energy work, if there hasn't been muscle testing or Reiki or Shiatsu or something they also look at you like you have three heads or three eyes. They just do. Now, the good news for all of us is that here, as we speak today in 2025, there's fewer of those people. This moment in time that I'm referring back to was in the 90s, like early 90s, when people didn't even really know what massage therapy was at that point. So, different context, different timeline for sure. But at that time, I didn't really know what she meant. I loved her. I trusted her. She was my good friend. I had an inkling that what she was telling me had some validity to it. And also, I was like, what? And come to find out, that's exactly what was happening. So I have just enough sensory information in my being, lucky me, that after I learned how to ground and shield and do the white light stuff and all the things that I do for my own practice, what was happening then was I was preparing myself before I walked into the treatment space with a patient who had severe musculoskeletal pain or dysfunction, and I could feel it in my body. So I remember one day
Mhm.
really having the confirmation, and it worked out like this. Client came in with back and hip and a little bit of shoulder, and I was like, cool, great. But I could barely see out of one eye while they were talking. I had such pain behind my eyeball. And so I just courageously asked, "How's your head feel today?" And they were like, "Oh, wow, how weird that you would ask. I got a splitting headache behind my left eye at lunch today and haven't been able to shake it yet." I was like, "Oh my gosh, my friend was
Oh,
right. My friend was right. Like there's a real thing." So that explained why by the end of the week I felt so like
uh,
icky because I didn't realize what was mine was theirs and what was theirs, right? Like I didn't know where the line was on all of that. And if you are new to this topic, the explanation that I always lead with, even in the coursework that's available right now in our club community. This is the example I give. And I think I mentioned it also last week when we met here on Tuesday training. If you walk into a room where there are two people who, previous to you walking into the room, were in a lot of argument, there's tension between the two of them. Even if they are quietly sitting there when you walk in, you can tell something just went down. Your spidey, you might not know what the topic of conversation is. You might not feel it in your body. Like, but technically you are feeling it in your body, and that's the point. You can sense something. And some practitioners that I've been in conversation with about this have said, well, that's my intuition, that's my brain, that's my sense. No, no, it's something other than that. Your brain is a recall organ of information you already have. But if you aren't privy to their conversation and what the tension was that transpired in their conversation, you aren't using your brain because the brain is a recall organ. That's the point. So there is some sense of energy, even if it's from other, that we all pick up on. And of course, there's varying degrees. I mentioned this in a group of practitioners at one point, and this one lovely being said, I never can tell. Like I feel like I don't have any social cues because I don't actually know when that happens. No problem, but that's one example. That's one example of how we're all picking up from each other. If you've ever said to someone that you love, is everything okay? It's not mental. You're picking up on something. You have something to add here, Gary?
Yeah, the experience I like to use is if you're standing in a crowd and you think someone's watching you and you turn around and you see someone actually looking at you eye to eye or looking at your body, that's what you picked up.
Mm-hmm.
So you that, and it's not usually, well, it could be from the front or the back. It doesn't matter because your biofields are picking up this connection.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people can relate to that one too. Oh, that person is, I just knew it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
back in the day, before we had empirical data that could document and prove this, I just knew it idea, before we had the empirical data on it, a lot of us were met with rolled eyes, like, oh, geez, here she goes,
Mm,
right? And so, luckily,
mhm.
again, we've evolved. Our greater community has evolved with us, and we get to have this open conversation now. And still, the measurable piece of it is not as tangible as Western anatomy, where you literally, all of us could be on a surgeon's table right now and they could tangibly grab an organ, right? If we were under
Mhm.
the operating knife, that could happen. And still, we do have some spaces where there is empirical data being gathered. HeartMath Institute is the one that comes to mind the most, and they have been around since that time that I just referred back to in the 90s. I remember being with them. I was lucky enough to know someone who was pretty high up, and they were doing a prototype on a device that they've now changed, I think, 6 times since then. And I was watching this device pick up my rhythms and do something on a computer screen. And I was like, wow, what is this voodoo magic? What is happening here? And how can they tell? And at that point, I was a little not completely on board. I remember it was measuring my heart coherence, which of course is what HeartMath does. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. Highly recommend them. And I was pretty sure I was in a quote good state. And the device that we were using was like showing me that I was flatlined and not actually elevating my heart. I was like, that's wrong. That's wrong. My heart's open. My heart's open. Well, now I've evolved and I could tell actually, no, gee, you have room to grow. So I was discrediting it in that moment because I didn't want to believe that that was really what I was vibing. So we do have devices now and more research and science that can back these things up. And still, what we're actually measuring isn't tangible. It's not like our gallbladder or our spleen that you could hold in your hand. So there's some room for um, learning and knowledge and education, and also room for interpretation. And so that's where we get to be really, I believe, mindful about what we're sharing when we start talking Eastern practices, because there's room for interpretation. There's room for interpretation on everything, though, by the way. Like there's room for interpretation when you tell someone, step your leg back. What do they actually use to do that, right? And that's very tangible. So there's room for interpretation on everything, but on this one, we want to be super responsible deeply knowledgeable and stop guessing. And so that's what the message was in today's newsletter. We don't want to sound like Fruit Loops and then just get righteous about that. You're gonna lose the attention of the people you really want to serve, especially when the people that you want to serve are in physical pain. Because when they're in physical pain, their hormone and chemicals have changed. Their nervous system is altered. They can barely hear what you're saying, and you're giving them something that on a good day requires interpretation. So be mindful about that, guys. I'm not saying, and I didn't say in the newsletter, don't be energy workers. I'm appealing to us that given the audience that you're serving, be mindful of how they're coming to you. Just like if you were telling them to move their leg differently. They have to hear it in a way that makes sense to them. So you get to be the sense maker. Okay, we got some comments here. Hi, who is this? Justy. I don't know your first name, but I'm glad that you're here. Muscle testing equals applied kinesiology question mark. Oh, Gary, I'm going to volley that one back to you. Myofascial bonds work is more somewhat Western. Yes, only because, and John Barnes's work is amazing, by the way. I studied with him as well. We were lucky to have him and his son too. And the reason why we're referring to myofascial work as Western is because of the anatomical part that we're addressing. That anatomical part has had a lot of Eastern, let's call it woo, put on it, and there's still room for exploration to prove that. But what we do know is that fascia is a very compound and complex soft tissue that's the densest connective tissue in the body, and it has a direct connection with muscles and joint activity. So we would definitely put that in the Western bucket as we're studying. I try to find what the client believes in. Good for you. Amazing. And also, I'm sure you do that in a really beautiful way. And also, we want to not interrogate our clients to reveal to us what their belief system is, because truly it's none of our business. What is our business is what is needed for them and the benefit of what we're offering. So we don't want them to, and this comes into messaging. It's not specifically about Eastern anatomy, but it is, of course, yoked like the whole body is. We want to offer to them information that supports their goal. What's the outcome that they're looking for while they're with us? We don't want to derail them. If they want to, let's say, get rid of their shoulder pain and they believe that it's a rotator cuff muscle and we start talking chakras, well, did we connect with them? No, now we're like taking them on a tangent. It might be connected, but we haven't connected with them yet to bring them on that journey with us. So we get to bridge that gap. And also, maybe they do believe in God. Maybe they don't believe in God. But to ask someone, do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe your body was made in divine order? None of your business, by the way. That's not part of the plan. And can you, yes, and how will you bring your higher belief about the body into the treatment setting with them and hold them in their already wholeness without commanding from them that they divulge something to you that's intimate and private for them. It's none of your business unless they want it to be your business. So be thoughtful about that as well. I love all these questions. Please tell me your name, my friend, who's our number one commenter for today. Just just say, I can't tell what that that acronym is standing for. Is yoga Eastern? I think yoga is both, and that's a really thoughtful question as well. And the reason I think it's both and misunderstood even by yoga practitioners is because of my role in the yoga community. So yoga practices philosophy and metaphors and guide to get us to a place of comfort so that we can meditate, which I believe we would put that in under Eastern practice. However, in order to get us to that state, according to yoga, to be able to get us on our mat to meditate without distraction, we must get rid of the physical, the Western apparatus distractions to be able to sit distraction free in meditation. So yoga is this beautiful blend, and I experience yoga teachers as being either one or the other. They're either the mechanical part, like I have defaulted into because I find myself to be in service there, or they default to, oh no, it's just easy and open and everybody should do their own thing. Meanwhile, they're actually hurting their shoulder more while they're in your yoga practice, which means they can't actually meditate. You haven't helped. So there's a bridge there that's available. And just like I talk to us on Tuesday training here, pick your purpose and then just stay in your lane. If you are the yoga teacher that absolutely moves people towards the Eastern practice and the philosophy of the greater practice and the metaphors and all the movements, then just pick your lane and don't try to be a mechanical, Western, anatomically functional anatomy based practitioner. Here's why. Because you'll be clumsy and messy about it and you'll mislead your students and yourself into what you're actually creating together for the hour. Just pick your lane. If you're not the functional anatomy person, then tell your students that. I want you to learn functional anatomy so you can come here and we can do the metaphor and, philosophical part. That's literally what I tell my yoga students. I will say to them, I'm never going to teach you a sequence that's going to make you feel like you reached nirvana, but I am going to teach you how to move your body so that you can get out of pain so you can go do that thing with another teacher who's better qualified for that. I'm not practiced at it. I was when I was in yoga teacher training and shortly thereafter, but then I got into my own lane and that's where I practiced. So that's what I'm good at. Nothing wrong with telling people what you're good at, guys. It's fraudulent to say the opposite. Um, okay, how come there are so many yogas? Because there's 56 flavors of Baskin Robbins too, or however many there are. Because life is full of variety and there's endless possibilities. And there's nothing wrong with that about that. However, back to what I said a moment ago, it's up to us as the practitioner to message with clarity to our people we're in service to. We'd call it, the end user of the product. It's up to us to message clearly to them what they're actually getting. Because to your point, a massage is not the same massage in every massage setting. A yoga class is not the same yoga class in every yoga studio, and energy work is not the same energy work either. So we get to communicate clearly what we're up to. And that is a big piece of the expert puzzle, guys. You can be the most talented, knowledgeable practitioner, but if you can't communicate that to the people you're in service to, they don't know the benefit of working with you. So that gets to be part of your skill set that you get to build that as you grow. And we do a lot of that in our program, of course. Gary, it looks like you're typing a juicy question or comment. Why don't you come off mute and let's hear your voice? I'd love to hear what you're up to.
Uh, yes, sometimes when I'm speaking about energy work and I get that, doe in the headlight look, that I'll bring in the term acupuncture and ask if people are familiar with or if they've ever had acupuncture.
Mhm.
And sometimes that takes it to an easier way of entering and speaking about energy medicine and traditional Chinese medicine and thousands of years and what they've done and meridians and things like that. And sometimes it's that bridge between this is something a meridian is and is that physical or but it's in the body and they can connect with that a little bit
Mhm.
better and needles go into that and so that's another approach that I use. I
That's a
just
good, yeah, I like that approach. You know why? Because it speaks to you using your anatomy to be able to connect with your messaging. So we know that there's
yeah
mirror neurons in the brain, and your client and whoever, it doesn't have to be a client, it could be a friend. Whoever you're speaking to has to have some association already in their brain, again, the recall organ, so that their mirror neurons can connect with what you're saying, and there's a reflection there, and then the conversation can proceed from there. If you're speaking a language, for example, let's say you're speaking Portuguese. It doesn't matter how lovely you are, how skilled you are, how open-hearted you are, how deeply committed you are to getting your person out of pain. They can't understand you because that's not the language they speak. So there needs to be some kind of connection in your languaging, in your messaging, to then be able to move together mostly with success. Now, I've heard people say, because there's always an exception. I've heard people say, "Oh no, I traveled to a country where I didn't know the language and I don't even know what she was doing, but it was the most magical experience I ever had." Great. I'm so happy that you experienced that. And as a practitioner that wants to repeat best practices, the question I had back was, "Well, if you don't know what she did, can you repeat it?" Because then it was just a time capsule of an experience. It wasn't something you could continue to evolve yourself with, right? It wasn't something you actually learned. it was something you experienced, which is great, but they're not the same. So we want our clients to learn what's in their best interest, which means we do get to communicate with them in a way that they're connecting with the information we're sharing. You don't want to just start dropping, clinical terms. Come here and talk with your community of practitioners, talk shop here, but don't talk shop at your clients and students and patients. They're out of the conversation. They're not included then. That doesn't serve them. That doesn't help. Okay, awesome. I could go on about this, but you're welcome. I'm glad the feedback was helpful for you. So let's talk, Gary, you mentioned at the beginning muscle testing. And also, yeah, can you circle back on that? Because that was our first question in our live chat. Muscle testing and applied kinesiology,
Mm.
Gary, are you using them interchangeably? Some people do, some people don't.
Yes, it's basically the same thing. The applied kinesiology is the more formal term because kinesiology is the movement of muscles. And if you can, I know people have had a master's in kinesiology and they don't even know what applied kinesiology is.
Mhm.
So basically, it's the using the wisdom of the body. The body knows everything. If we go to the body to get answers, how are we going to get these answers? We can do it through the Schatz method and moving muscles around, but you can also apply a certain force almost to any muscle to push down against it, have the person resist. If they can resist with enough strength, in other words, the muscle stays strong, that's the body initially saying yes or okay. If you apply pressure to the muscle and the muscle is weak, that's the body saying no or negative. And when we use the muscle testing, the body is only saying yes or no. So we can um, present a situation to the body and muscle test that. You can touch parts to the body and muscle test that touching. You can say, my name is Sally, and we can test that. We can test thoughts. We can test all kinds of things with simply the strength or weakness of the muscle as you apply maybe 2 pounds of pressure to it. There
Awesome.
are tricks to muscle testing.
Yeah,
So muscle, yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for walking us through the technique. It is a real deal. And Gary, I heard you say the Schatz method moves muscles around. Actually, our level 2 practitioners use muscle testing. So we are definitely a blend
Great.
of Eastern and Western for sure, because it's a method, it's not a technique. Muscle testing is a technique. And I would add, in addition to what you offered, Gary, rather than it being a yes or no, because I don't believe that the body is ever a no, it's a resonant. I'm either resonant with this or I'm not resonant with this, meaning I have a frequency of
Correct.
connection or I don't have a frequency, like water repelling off a duck's back kind of deal. And so
That's
that does,
much clearer.
yeah,
Yes.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
no
Absolutely.
forever. It means no right now. So,
No, right now.
yeah, one of our Shots Method practitioners, you're getting thanks in the chat, Gary. So thanks for being so clear about that. One of our practitioners and our advocates, and I use muscle testing every day. She uses it more than I do. And the first time that we did the muscle testing was in the grocery store. Do I buy this? Do I eat that? Do I this? Do I that? Um, and and she'll tell you she does it for what clothes she's going to wear today and what our order she should do her errands in. I did it this weekend as well on running errands, and I thought, oh my gosh, this was not how I would have run my day if my brain and my ego would have laid out my day. But I laid out my
Yes.
day based
Yeah.
on how muscle testing, how my whole being was resonant with how this day was going to roll out, and it was magical. The experience
Yes.
I had, I
Thank
was
you.
like,
Yeah.
wow, that was one of my favorite days. And everything that was included in that. So you could use it just in your own resonance. And again, it's a technique, so you get to learn the technique, but you can also use it with the clients that you're working with. And I would say
Mhm.
with, not on. So one of the things that happens with some applied kinesiology practitioners, again, we're in the world of Eastern here, some applied kinesiology practitioners um, get to practice that skill, just like we get to practice any skill. And you all get to also practice that so that you know that you are neutral when you're using that skill so that you're not adding and oning someone, which happens a lot. And if you're not an applied kinesiology muscle testing practitioner, let me just say this because it doesn't really matter. It's true for all techniques. When we start working in the world of energy, which I believe in, by the way, I told you I'm certified. I have a whole wall of certificates of my own energy journey. When we start working in the world of energy, as we said at the top of the hour here, there is some empirical data and not a lot, and there is no tangible thing to hold on to. You can't hold a chakra in your hand after doing surgery on someone. It doesn't work like that, which means it is our responsibility, and this is part of the provocative newsletter I sent out this morning. It is our responsibility to be as respectful and authentic and knowledgeable about the energy work that we are offering as possible and not use it anymore as a scapegoat or a backdoor. What I
Mhm.
experience with practitioners here in this middle reign of I want to get people out of pain, but I'm going to do energy work to do it. What I experience with practitioners who ride that line is that they don't actually have enough functional anatomy and orthopedic depth to be able to do that kind of work, and they default over to the energy work, and then they're not clear about what the energy work means or what part it plays in their client's musculoskeletal dysfunction. And my appeal to all of you is to be versed in both. If you're trying or attempting to or committed to getting folks out of orthopedic structural pain, you need to know orthopedic structures, which is not muscle testing. And I love muscle testing. I told you, I even do it in the grocery store. But there's a place for it. And when you're not clear on the orthopedic nuts and bolts and how they work and what happens when they go awry and what compensatory patterns mean and the stacking of all types of combinations of muscle function and joint structures, when you're not clear on what that is, and you start telling people it's their relationship with someone in their life, you sound like a fruitcake. And the problem with that, besides that it doesn't fare well for you, is that it's also not helping the rest of us. And it's definitely not helping the person you're in service to. You get to know for sure, I don't know, is this, and then forget the I don't know part. Is this musculoskeletal? Is this a torn muscle or a tendon under Golgi tendon duress? Is this reciprocal inhibition imbalance? Is this a synergist that's jumping in or a lever that can't be balanced and that's what's causing the pain in the part of the body that you want to blame on their past? Or are you positive that you have gone through every possible tissue available, and there is nothing that is being responded to from a musculoskeletal approach, but it is the pain is showing up physically, which is what energy work does. It manifests physically, and you get to know the difference. The thing that there's two things that there are two statements that grind my goat as a trainer from other practitioners. The first is when they start making up diagnoses and freaking out their patients, their clients on all kinds of worst case scenarios instead of just getting simple about it and solving it. And the other thing, well, there's three things. The second thing is when they start blaming their clients for what they haven't sorted out muscular skeletal. Oh, well, he didn't do his homework and it's the way he sits and it's the way she swings a golf club. And how do you know that? How do you know? Like, do you actually know the mechanical implication, the orthopedic nuts and bolts and how they go right and how they go wrong? Or are you wanting to just deflect off of what you don't know and put it on the client? Stop doing that. Be in service, no more, do better. And the third place that really grinds my goat is when practitioners who are dealing with pain don't have the anatomical enough yet. They're still learning, but then they start placing what sounds like I call psychological, psychological warfare on someone. They become an armchair psychologist. They're starting to put, oh, one of our practitioners used to say that a lot. Oh, well, they just don't know it's their daddy issues. And I was like, steam puffs would start coming out of my ear. You guys, that's not our lane. Even even when you are a well-vetted energy practitioner, and I am, that is not our lane to be in someone's psychology. Stop doing that to deflect away from the musculoskeletal training you still get to have. Don't put issues on people. You don't know that. Even when you're an energy worker, that's literally the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing with that information. We're not supposed to be laboring them more with more diagnoses and labels. We're meant to be alleviating that. So the languaging and messaging around that doesn't even connect. And some of you are like, I'm a somatic practitioner, Gina. I do somatic therapy. Cool. Same deal. Stop being a psychologist then and putting labels on people about how they're navigating their life. Remove them if you're doing the somatic work. Don't add them. Don't label them like a diagnosis. We don't even do that on the Western part. Not supposed to do that. It's fixed energy. Gary, I can tell you're commenting. What do you got? It's time to refer out. Well stated in writing. Yes. Yes. It's time to refer out. And also admit, my loves, just admit that you need more orthopedic training so that you actually can solve the problem and not make up stuff. So if we were to divide this into two lanes right now, the physical part, right? The nuts and bolts, what's causing the back pain that's physical. If you don't know what actually is happening, if you don't understand stacked compensatory patterns and pain types and all the things, it would be easy to blame your client for not doing their homework. But that's a deflection of what you don't know. Don't do that. Just learn more so that you can actually get to the root because they're all solvable, every one of them. Same thing goes on the eastern side of the road. If you don't know how to actually resolve it, you'll make it about them and you'll put a psychological label and you'll call it somatic therapy on top of what they're experiencing. Don't, that just means you don't know how to get rid of it. If you knew how to get rid of it, what you would call it is irrelevant. So do that, be that person. And then if you want to and are ready for blending both East and West, then blend them from a place of, I know how to eradicate this at the source. And I'm not going to get into labels because I'm not going to fixate my client in a fixed position. I'm here to see them whole and remedied. That's what we get to do, guys. So I love that y'all are here and that's why you're learning more and we get to keep doing that. Just notice what you do when you get a little nervous and you feel unprepared. That's a common habit to deflect like that. When you're in a treatment setting, don't do that. Okay, just don't do that. Just be like, you know what? I'm going to find out. We don't want to say, I don't know, because you get to be the authority. But if you don't know, you don't know. And then your message is, I'm going to find out. We're going to explore this the next time I see you. I'm going to find out. Okay. All right. How much people's problems are originating? Is this a question or was that are you contributing to the conversation? I can't quite tell. Because your comment, and again, this is Justy. Thank you for your comment. And it shows up just behind a little heart. So I can't tell if there's a question mark at the end there. Please comment again. Let us know if there's more question in there. All right, guys, I've been hard hammering you now for a while. I hope this is landing and resonating. I want us to be clear and responsible and empowered to do really great work. And I also want us to include Eastern because it's real. Eastern medicine, Gary, you mentioned it, traditional Chinese medicine predates Western medicine by thousands and thousands of years. It's a real thing. If you've ever visited parts of China where they're practicing, it's wild. Like they spend a lifetime of their whole career learning it, like some of us have as well. Just acupuncture alone takes years and years and years, longer than massage therapy, longer than yoga
Mhm.
teacher training by decades. So they're studying for a long, long time. That should give us a moment of pause on the complexity that's involved in doing those practices well. And we don't want to just ad hoc them and get a weekend certificate, just like in the Western side of the work that we do. You don't want to just take a weekend technique and call yourself, done. We're never done. We get to keep learning. So when we are learning Eastern medicine, Eastern practices, I like to start with TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, because of its depth in history. And it allows us to have almost like a second book, right? Here's Eastern medicine, here's Western medicine, as if they have their own book on the bookshelf. They do. And then we can get our minds around, there's two different books here. There's two different practices. There's two different focal points, and they do blend together because we are whole, but we get to learn them separately. So in traditional Chinese medicine, predominantly it's meridians, as you mentioned, Gary, which are energy channels which flow heaven to earth and earth to heaven. And I like to acknowledge that that makes us as the human, with the meridians running, the energy channels running heaven to earth and earth to heaven, we're the conduit between the two. So as a human being, we are the conduit. That makes us even more magical than our tangible parts. And it's real. And if you talk to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, often an acupuncturist, they will give you a ton of information about the meridians and the flows, etc. Some of what happens now, I've noticed in this current day and age, 2025, is that even the most well-versed acupuncturists are simplifying it down, I believe, for marketing purposes. So we get to be responsible, even as the recipient of this information, to recognize that we are all expecting answers in less than 4 seconds, right? If you think about if any of you are doing any social media, or just watch yourself. Watch yourself and how long you'll watch a video before you swipe past it. Just next, I'm not listening, next, done. But we didn't, most of us who've been at this game for a while, that's not how early days of learning worked. You got to sit in a class, even if it was the worst teacher ever, and just deal with it. Now we're getting certifications on a weekend remotely. And practitioners have admitted, I only kind of half listened. I was doing dishes, I was cooking dinner, I was interacting with my daughter, but I was listening. Well, multitasking doesn't work. So there's not even a real way that that happens in the brain, and we have evidence of that. And yet that's how we're learning these days. So notice if you're doing Eastern practices, because of the non-tangible part, if you're trying to do it too fast, and if you are an Eastern practitioner and you're explaining, or you are a teacher of it to other folks, we get to be responsible for how much we're watering that down. Because again, an acupuncturist or a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner spends a lifetime, a lifetime. It is a commitment. They don't have 6 careers like we do in the West. It is a commitment to learning Eastern medicine in that way. So think about that and how long you dipped your toe in, and whether you get to go back and dip your toe again, and how you're representing to yourself how much Eastern anatomy you're privy to. Just be thoughtful about that. Gary?
I just think it's interesting that in China, the acupuncturists uh, get get paid to keep you healthy,
Mhm.
and when you're not healthy, they have to treat you for free.
Exactly.
So it's a whole reversal of that concept of
Mhm.
our Eastern and Western medicine, what's healthy and what's not. Anyway, that's just a throw into that.
No, it's absolutely good. We mentioned that last week as well. And it's not the opposite of Western, though. It's not the opposite of Western, because
No,
here's how it works. Just as you mentioned, they get paid to keep you well, but keep in mind, listen to this. In order for their patients to be well, their patients have to participate, obviously, right? Like the patients are doing the
you're
eating,
right.
the cooking, and the sleeping, and the stretching, and the exercise, right? So they have messaged and enrolled the patients that they work with into a partnered way of working,
Very good.
which we get to do as well, whether we're doing Eastern or Western work. So they're enrolled in a partnership, in a collaboration, in wellness, and that's how they run. They're not mandating homework, they're not assigning things, they're not blaming their patients when they get unwell. They take responsibility when their patients are unwell and don't get paid in that period of time. Think about that. Think about that. How many of you are willing to not be paid if you don't solve the problem?
Mhm.
Some of you are like, well, I'm not actually, except that you undercut yourself and don't charge enough. But I digress. We've talked about that in May. Western medicine is not the opposite of that. Western medicine has nothing to do with that. Western medicine's development and intention is to avert death. Has nothing to do with quality of life, has nothing to do with wellness and vitality. It's not its origin. That's why it's called emergency medicine. We've all become so sympathetic in our nervous system responses that everything's a freaking emergency, including, hurting our back. Okay, you're not going to die from that, which means not that I'm not compassionate. I'm literally in the business of getting that not to be your experience. But if it's not something you're going to die from, your Western doctor doesn't have that much training on it. That's the point. And that right there in the nook in between wellness and vitality of the Eastern medicine world and averting death of the Western medicine world is exactly where we all sit. Where there's complications that aren't life-threatening and folks aren't completely well, but we're not dealing with them as doctors. There's something in the nook, and that's where we get to be, guys. And that is a depth of knowledge, just like both sides we just talked about. No one, I don't think, would argue that Western medicine doctors are very well educated. Very well, not on nutrition, but we all agree, they have training that none of us is willing to take. That's why we're not doctors. We're not Western doctors. We don't want to do that kind of training. And we would all agree that they're well trained, but in very different things than we're trained in. Same thing goes for Eastern doctors. Very well trained in things that we are not trained in. So we also get to be very well trained in something that neither of them are trained in. And that's our responsibility as body workers. We get to be very well trained in body work. Average of 7 hours in nutrition. Gary, you're way exaggerating. It's average of 1. I'm not even kidding you. Dr. Hyman just posted, Mark Hyman just posted in the last week, I saved the post, that now his daughter's also in medical school, also with 1 hour of nutrition. I took the nutrition that medical doctors took in pre-med when I was an undergrad, and I was looking around like, is anybody else horrified? Why does nobody look horrified? This is horrifying. Why is nobody horrified? And I walked out of there and I was like, oh, oh, okay. Okay, got it. That's not where they do that. And it's not. So we get to stop. I posted this just this week. We get to stop asking doctors questions that they don't have the answers to. And we get to stop deflecting questions that we're meant to have the answers to. So where is your lane, guys? If you're not an Eastern doctor or a Western doctor, and you're not, you're here. You're like me. We're awesome and needed. Where's your lane? What questions have you not been able to answer in the last 3 weeks, 3 hours? And where are you going to learn that? Well, here, I hope. I'm happy to share that with you. But you get to learn it and stop pointing at the others who don't know what they're talking about. It's none of their business what we're talking about, just like it's none of our business to do open heart surgery. That's not what we're here to do. But we should be as well knowledgeable, skilled, and responsible with the work that we do, just like a heart surgeon. You don't want them going in haphazard. You don't want them going into heart surgery talking smack about something they don't really know. Like, oh, you must have heart issues because you had a broken heart when you were in college. How did that relationship turn out for you? Can you imagine if a heart surgeon said that to you? Holy shit. And yet we're saying that to our clients because we don't actually know how to solve their shoulder issue, because we don't really know the mechanics of those muscles and what to do when they go wrong. That's why we get to keep learning, guys. I sound like I'm at you. I'm I'm putting a little flame underneath us. Like we get to be really clear and really proud of how much we know and not try to deflect and try to like dodge the question. You want to know those answers, guys. I know you do. That's why you're here. You want to know the answers. So find out where the gaps are for you and dive in. Maybe it is Eastern anatomy. Maybe it's more Eastern anatomy. Maybe it's not Eastern anatomy because you still don't know joint actions and you're like honest about that. Just be honest about it and dive in. That's what this month is all about. That broad sweep of foundational anatomy. We talked about that word 2 weeks ago. Foundational doesn't mean basic. It means this much is in my bandwidth of what I'm supposed to know, Eastern and Western, and how it all works together. And these are the pockets of places where I actually don't know. Great. I'm glad we took the inventory. That's how we start mastery every year. For those who are in our mastery track, we start in July. And for those of you who are on board with us to learn the anatomy that we get to learn, that's the anatomy that we're up to this month. Here's the breadth of what I'm supposed to know. I'm responsible to as a body worker. And here are the pockets where I actually still don't know joint actions. I'm not completely clear what reciprocal inhibition means, and I definitely don't know what happens when that goes wrong. Okay, great. Good that you took an inventory. Let's dive in and get you that information so that you can have the answers. That's what we're up to in July. That's why we're here in Inspired Beyond Anatomy Land, which again, I'll remind us, is our course of the month. So our mastery practitioners are starting with Inspired Beyond Anatomy as they start their journey in mastery, and everyone can join us for that course, which is the course of the month in our club. It's a 21-hour beast of a course, quoting Rebecca, one of our mastery graduates. It's a beast of a course because it covers the breadth, the width, I should say, of what we are meant to know as body workers, both manual and movement alike. This is what we're supposed to know. And it just covers from A to Z, all those places. And you get to take an inventory on like, yep, I get to know that. Oh, I already got that. And do your checkbox there. You're welcome to join us if you haven't been in the club with us. For a complimentary 7-day window. You're welcome to join us if you want to dive in and see what the Western and Eastern anatomy is about and what this beast of a course covers. And you can take as much of the training there as you want. We've also added in July our mind mastery and leadership focus, which is a great way for all of us to up level and be in the right mind space to lead ourselves towards success while we're also in service to lead others to the same success. So that's all happening in the club. I hope you guys will join us there. Debbie and Gary, do you have Oh, Gary, you're so sweet. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be an inspiration to you. I'm glad that you guys feel inspired so that you're lit up and excited about what you're here to do, and that you're also brave enough to face the places where you get to learn more. We don't want to be overwhelmed and spook ourselves. We want to be excited about that. So I'm happy to be that conduit for you, Gary. Thanks for saying that. Debbie and Gary, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up our Tuesday training for the week?
Thank you for the great information.
Oh, well, I wasn't searching for compliments, but I'll take them. Thank you so much, Debbie. You're welcome. You're welcome, Justy. I hope that's your name. I hope I'm calling you by the right name. Psychology tells us that hearing your name is a good thing, but hearing it pronounced incorrectly is not great. So I hope that you could tell me your name. I'd love to call you by your name. Gary, you have anything to add before we wrap up? I know your Eastern and Western balance is really blooming as we've been spending time together. Is there anything else you wanted to add for today?
I think the word is clarification
Mhm.
in a whole bunch of layers. So I thank you for the session today. Yeah. Refinement and clarification.
Beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Good, good, good. We have 2 more Tuesdays in July. This is one of those months where we have 5 Tuesdays because, every quarter that works out that way. So we're going to actually unwrap individual facets or elements of Eastern anatomy when we meet next week. So I've already given my pitch and my pep talk and my noodle whipping and invitations for all of us to be well vetted, and then we're going to dive into an overview, but all of the elements that we talk about in Inspired Beyond Anatomy that are Eastern based. I will preface this by saying I only teach the Eastern practices that I'm trained in. So there's plenty, and there's not all of them, with the exception of muscle testing, which I don't teach in Inspired Beyond Anatomy. Like I said, we do use it in our TSM community, but we won't be going over that in Inspired Beyond Anatomy. Just want to make sure managing expectations for those of you who are going to join in on that course. All right, my friends, it has been a very fast hour. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I can't wait to see you guys again for more next week. Until I see you then, continue to do great work in the world. Bye for now.